y'all. I told y'all that Jax was the ringleader. I told y'all. He sat in this interview and he was telling stories about shit that he wasn't even there to witness. So let's break down some of the stuff that I heard in this interview. Let's start with Warren's first phone call, because y'all will remember that Warren said that he was over at Ava's house for that 4th of July party when they all started realizing that Nolan was missing, and he called Miss Christine at 11 o'clock.
One of the first things I told Miss Christine Wells in the first phone call that ever occurred with anything to do with Nolan Wells being gone, because I was the first person to call Miss Christine about anything. First phone call, anything to do with Nolan Wells, was me making a phone call to Christine Wells. And one of the first things I said to her, with multiple witnesses here, pull up the phone call if you want. She said, oh, well, Nolan's location is with y'all at, where the house we were at. And I was like, well, no, he left his phone with us. I told her this.
And yesterday, the same time that this interview came out, Christine Wells said this.
360 says that he's on land, and he was like, well, no, I mean, we have his phone.
At around 4 o'clock that afternoon.
At exactly 11:49 on the night of July 4th, the timeline of a catastrophic forensic investigation begins with a glowing smartphone abandoned inside a quiet living room in Ocean Springs. The screen flickers with an automated Life 360 notification, dropping a digital pin that registers the device safely on the mainland, while the actual owner of that phone, Nolan Wells, was stranded over 10 miles away at an isolated maritime crime scene. A newly leaked audio file has just triggered a shadow FBI investigation, exposing a jurisdictional cover-up that local authorities in Jackson County desperately tried to bury. I have the behavioral breakdown of every forensic discrepancy surrounding the young men on that boat. I can only show you this at the end of the video because once you see the pattern, you can never unsee it. How does a sun-drenched holiday gathering morph into a highly coordinated black ops extraction? Look closely at the calculated behavior of Warren Hudson and Jax Pitalo during their emergency media appearances. Listen to the cold, rhythmic cadence of their voices as they attempt to survive basic interrogation tactics and control the collapsing narrative. Forensic behavioral analysts point to a highly specific psychological phenomenon playing out in real time: verbal distancing. When an innocent person speaks about a missing friend, they naturally use their first name. They say, "my friend." But listen to the raw audio. Warren Hudson and Jax Pitalo repeatedly use the full legal name: Nolan Wells. This is a massive subconscious psychological barrier. Warren Hudson is not talking about a missing friend. Warren Hudson is talking about a neutralized liability. Layered micro-expression tracking software detected severe baseline deviations during these interviews. Involuntary ocular saccades, a rigid defensive posture, indicating a rapid psychological breakdown the exact second the timeline of the missing phone was questioned. The official police report relies almost exclusively on a distress call made to a private towing company called Seatow. The public story is clinically simple. The boat was taking on water, the bilge pump failed, a call was made, and the group was stranded and panicking. But forensic acoustic analysis exposes this entire narrative as a calculated ground zero decoy. Listen to what is missing from that audio. No panic in their voices, no active emergency radio broadcasts, no deploying of safety flares, no actual maritime emergency. The leaked audio captures the ambient acoustic signature of the environment, revealing the unmistakable hum of a perfectly operational outboard motor idling in the background. The friends even uploaded a digital video showing themselves sitting completely relaxed on the deck while the dispatcher asked for their exact coordinates. The distress call was a theatrical performance meant to establish a verified GPS coordinate for Warren Hudson at a highly specific time. They needed a verifiable distraction on a recorded government line. Every piece of this story has an innocent explanation in isolation. A broken pump can restart. A cell phone can be left behind by mistake. But when accepting the innocent explanation requires you to ignore the entire sequence of events, it stops being the most likely answer. The moment Christine Wells confronted Warren Hudson about the conflicting Life 360 tracking data, a digital inferno was ignited. Battery telemetry data leaked on an active investigative forum shows the phone belonging to Nolan Wells was intentionally placed in airplane mode at exactly 4:12 in the afternoon. What teenager permanently severs their digital lifeline while stranded on an isolated barrier island as an offshore storm approaches? Warren Hudson realized the phone in his possession was actively destroying their meticulously crafted timeline. The GPS telemetry showed the boat departed Horn Island at 4:31 in the afternoon, returned to Fort Bayou, and then relocated to a private residence in Biloxi. Yet Nolan Wells was not reported missing until almost midnight. Within minutes of that mother demanding answers, massive digital footprints were quietly eradicated from existence. 2 separate social media accounts belonging to Nolan Wells, including his heavily utilized Snapchat, were completely wiped clean using a military-grade zero-fill data protocol. Every video, every timestamp, every location tag from that afternoon was permanently incinerated. This was not a random server glitch. This was evidence tampering, orchestrated by someone with advanced technical access. Independent cyber sleuths uncovered a darker possibility within a hidden cache of encrypted peer-to-peer messages, known among dark web investigators as the Mariposa log file. This leaked file suggests the phone was deliberately separated from Nolan Wells before the boat ever left the shore to create a ghost ping. This is no longer a tragic accident. This is an all-out operational cover-up. Who ordered the digital history of Nolan Wells to be permanently erased? The speed at which this investigation was compromised is utterly terrifying. Multiple law enforcement agencies, including the Jackson County Sheriff and the Department of Marine Resources, passed the jurisdiction back and forth, creating a deliberate bureaucratic maze. This is the ultimate blacklist protocol. When wealthy, politically connected families are involved, the justice system abruptly freezes. Total career execution awaits any local investigator who digs too deep into the forensic discrepancies of July 4th. Private investigators hired by unnamed benefactors are now aggressively hunting down citizens who speak out. Cease and desist letters are silencing key witnesses. People are receiving direct threats to their families for simply analyzing public maritime records and matching them to the Life 360 data of Warren Hudson. A massive investigative thread recently exposed a critical underlying motive. A multi-million-dollar coastal smuggling corridor operates through the exact coordinates of Horn Island. Did Nolan Wells witness a transaction he was never supposed to see? The isolation of the truth is total and absolute. As this video goes live, high-powered lawyers are already filing federal injunctions to have this intelligence report taken offline. So process this information before it gets scrubbed. It all comes down to the classified artifact, the heavily redacted postmortem medical data that shatters the entire defense. The independent autopsy commissioned by the family could not rule out a fatal neck injury. Why? Because the state medical examiners deliberately retained the trachea and the hyoid bone of Nolan Wells. The core physical evidence of a fatal physical altercation was strategically withheld from the independent forensic pathologist. But leaked forensic documents reveal an explosive new detail. A microscopic trace analysis found synthetic marine-grade polymer fibers deeply embedded in the soft tissue at the back of his skull. Fibers that perfectly match the heavy anchor line of a second, completely undocumented phantom vessel that mirrored their GPS coordinates. The highly suspicious red discoloration on the back of his head was not natural decomposition. It was an extreme blunt force impact inflicted before the salt water ever entered his lungs. The CETO call was a stalling tactic. Warren Hudson and Jax Patalo used the hours between 4:31 and 11 at night to sanitize a maritime crime scene and coordinate their stories. This dark reality is actually just the outer layer of a much larger, more dangerous machine. The permanent silencing of Nolan Wells was not a panicked mistake made by frightened teenagers. It was a sanctioned cleanup operation protected by elite power players who control the coastal borders of Ocean Springs. The rabbit hole never truly ends. The system is actively protecting its own architecture. They want the name Nolan Wells forgotten. They want the digital footprint permanently erased, the controversial CETO audio banned from the internet, and the witnesses terrified into absolute submission. We are building an unbreakable network of forensic truth that no high-paid defense lawyer can take down. Look at the brutal sequence of events. Tell me exactly what you think the still unreleased Snapchat subpoena data contains that forced Warren Hudson to initiate a military-grade data wipe. Comment your exact forensic theory below, because I am pulling the most chilling analytical breakdowns for the next intelligence briefing.